You're at a checkup, the nurse takes your blood pressure, reads out 135/85, and says, "A little high, nothing to worry about." You nod, you leave, and you forget that number by the time you get to your car. Here's the problem. High blood pressure doesn't hurt. It doesn't come with warning signs. That's exactly why it's dangerous. People call it the silent killer. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's completely silent, while it quietly wears down your blood vessels every single day for decades, without you ever feeling a thing. Today we're going to talk about what's actually happening inside your body when your blood pressure runs high, why a number like 135/85 matters more than you think, and what you should ask your doctor at your next visit. Think of your blood vessels like the plumbing in your house. Your heart is the pump, your blood vessels are the pipes, and blood pressure is simply the force of that fluid moving through them. In a healthy person, that pressure is just enough to move blood throughout the body, not too strong, not too weak. But when blood pressure stays elevated for a long time, that blood keeps hitting the walls of your vessels with more force than they were built for. Over time, that constant force damages the inner lining of the blood vessel, a thin layer of cells that lines the inside of every artery. That small injury becomes a place where cholesterol and plaque start to build up, the same way sediment collects in a cracked pipe. The blood vessels gradually become stiffer, narrower, less flexible, and your heart, that pump, has to work harder to push blood through a system of vessels that's now stiffer and narrower. Like a pump forced to push water through clogged pipes, it has to push harder, and over years it can become enlarged and weaker. This is why high blood pressure isn't just a number. It's a quiet mechanical process that affects your heart, your blood vessels, your brain, your kidneys, and your eyes all at once. Organs with small, delicate blood vessels that are especially vulnerable. After 40, blood vessels naturally lose some of their elasticity. That's a normal part of aging, nothing to be afraid of. But because those vessels are already less flexible, they're more sensitive to high pressure, and damage builds up faster than it would have in your 20s or 30s. Nearly 1 in 2 adults has high blood pressure. This is also the stage of life when small weight gain, less activity, and accumulated stress from work and family quietly push blood pressure up year after year with no symptoms to sound the alarm. And that damage is cumulative, not instant. Someone with slightly elevated blood pressure for 15 years has a very different level of vessel damage than someone who's only had it for 1 year. That's exactly why catching it at 40 matters so much more than catching it at 65. According to the American Heart Associations and major health organizations, blood pressure is classified as follows. Normal is under 120/80. Elevated is 120/129, with the bottom number under 80. Stage 1 hypertension is 130/139/80-89. Stage 2 hypertension is 140/90 or higher. And a hypertensive crisis is above 180/120, which requires emergency care. Interestingly, the medical community has debated for years exactly where the line for too high should be, and the diagnostic threshold has actually been lowered over time, as more evidence showed that vessel damage begins at lower numbers than doctors once assumed. Long-term studies, like the Framingham Heart Study, which has followed tens of thousands of people for decades, found that for every 20-point rise in systolic blood pressure, the risk of cardiovascular disease roughly doubles. That's not a minor correlation. It's one of the strongest predictors of stroke and heart attack in all of medicine. The good news is, this is one of the few major risk factors you can actually change, unlike your age or your genetics. Here's a question a lot of people want answered, but rarely hear a straight answer to. Can high blood pressure be cured? Or is it something you'll live with for the rest of your life? The honest answer is, for most people diagnosed, especially at stage 2 or higher, high blood pressure is something you manage for life, not something you cure once and move on from. Similar to how you manage your eyesight with glasses, rather than treating it once and being done. But that's not the bad news, it sounds like. Manageable means blood pressure can absolutely be brought down to a safe range and kept there long term. People who control their blood pressure well have a risk of stroke and heart attack that's close to people who never had high blood pressure at all. Treatment usually has 2 parts, and they often go together. Lifestyle changes, reducing sodium, regular physical activity, maintaining a healthy weight, limiting alcohol, getting enough sleep, and managing stress. For mildly elevated blood pressure or stage 1, lifestyle changes alone are sometimes enough to bring the numbers back to normal. And medication, when a doctor prescribes it. There are several different classes of medication, each working through a different mechanism. Some help the body release excess salt and water. Some help blood vessels relax and widen. Some help the heart beat with less effort. Your doctor chooses what's right for your specific situation, which is exactly why you should never take someone else's prescription, even a family member's. A smaller number of people, usually younger, with only mildly elevated blood pressure, where excess weight is the main driver, can bring their blood pressure back to normal long term through lifestyle changes alone without needing medication. But that's different from being cured. If the old habits come back, blood pressure usually climbs right back up. Let's clear up a few common misunderstandings. First, I don't have any symptoms, so my blood pressure must be fine. That's false. This is exactly why it's called the silent killer. The only way to know is to measure it, not to feel it. Second, just cutting salt is enough. Salt matters, but it's not the only factor. Weight, activity, sleep, stress, and alcohol all play an equal or bigger role. Third, high blood pressure only affects the heart. As we covered earlier, it affects the entire vascular system, the brain, through stroke, the kidneys, through kidney failure, and the eyes, through retinal damage. Fourth, I'll just stop the medication once I feel better. This is the most dangerous misunderstanding of all. Your blood pressure is stable because of the medication, not because the condition is gone. Any change to your medication should always go through your doctor. This isn't treatment advice, just a few questions worth bringing to your own doctor. Where does my blood pressure currently stand relative to the recommended range for someone my age and health situation? Should I be monitoring my blood pressure at home? And what time of day gives the most accurate reading? Beyond medication, if I'm on any, what lifestyle changes would make the biggest difference for me specifically? Should I be screened for any effects on my heart, kidneys, or eyes given my current blood pressure? On lifestyle in general, without replacing your doctor's guidance, public health recommendations consistently point to regular physical activity, maintaining a healthy weight, limiting alcohol, getting enough sleep, and managing stress as changes with real, measurable impact on blood pressure. High blood pressure isn't a life sentence, and it isn't something that just happens to you by bad luck. It's a process you can understand, monitor, and have a real say in controlling, together with your doctor. This video is for educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for medical advice. If you have any concerns about your blood pressure, please talk to your doctor directly. Thank you for watching all the way through. See you in the next video from Doc Chon.